Today I get to talk about Boruto 79, but before I talk about that, I want to give a huge shout out to my sponsors for this video, which is Apps That Pay. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with them, they basically give you a survey and you can actually get paid for doing the surveys. You know, there are multiple companies out there that want to know your feedback and what you guys think about products. They'll pretty much ask you simple questions, very simple questions. And once you finish enough surveys, you get paid. If you guys want to download the app, the link is going to be in the description below. I highly recommend it. But now I get to talk about Boruto episode 79. To say the least, this was a very interesting episode. A couple of things happened in this episode. And one of the first things I want to talk about for this episode was Mitsuki actually betraying Boruto. Now, of course, no one really thinks that Mitsuki, or no one really thought that Mitsuki was going to eventually betray Boruto, but the overwhelming consensus about this episode is that Mitsuki did betray Boruto. Now, I have a couple of thoughts on this. First things first, I want to say, I feel like in terms of Boruto and Mitsuki meeting, the writers did it well. They did it justice. It was very emotional. It was a very good scene to me. Some people might disagree, but in my opinion, I feel like it was a very good scene. The scene when Mitsuki reached his hand out, it gave Mitsuki that in and out situation. I really liked it. And of course, Mitsuki picked out. Now, here's my opinion about the whole situation. Now, my full opinion about the situation is that Mitsuki did not completely betray Boruto. In my head, I feel like Mitsuki is trying to gain the trust of Sekiei and also kokoyou. Now, here's the reason why I say this. Right before that scene where we did see Sekiei basically told Mitsuki like, hey, kokoyou told me not to bring you with me because he knows that you're probably going to revert back to these guys. Now, of course, if Mitsuki wants to do what he wants to do, or if he wants to get some sort of information from Sekiei or kokoyou, his quote-unquote will, or whatever you want to call it, he has to gain their trust. This is one of the perfect times to actually gain their trust. Confront the reason why kokoyou has trust issues in the first place and deny them. That's basically what Mitsuki just did. And of course, Mitsuki completed that mission, or that tiny mission within his head about gaining trust from kokoyou. Now, in my opinion, as I said, I strongly doubt Mitsuki went rogue. Going rogue is a very serious claim. Of course, it does seem like Mitsuki did go rogue, but in this certain situation, I feel like Mitsuki's probably not going to go rogue. He just wants to gain trust of his newfound teammates, if you want to call them that. Now, of course, I feel like somewhere in the next episode, Mitsuki's probably going to slip a snake back to Boruto and say, I just want to gain trust or something like that, or something just to give Boruto the heads up, like, I'm not really with them. In the immediate future, Boruto and Sarada are going to be screwed up in the head. They're not going to know exactly what to think. Of course, Garaga is there too. Garaga is there just waiting to eat Boruto. I'll talk about Garaga later on too, but it is going to be a very confusing situation for Boruto and Sarada at first. For example, what are they going to do now? Are they going to follow Mitsuki? Are they going to try to confront Mitsuki again and ask him more questions? Or are they just going to try to flat out capture Mitsuki? These are the questions that they're going to have to ask themselves. And of course, Shigedai himself, he feels like he's like the adult in the whole situation. He feels like he's in an awkward situation because he stuck his neck out for all these guys, and it turns out that Mitsuki doesn't even want to be saved. So the next episode is going to be a very interesting thing to see what they do plan on doing and what are their steps from here. Now, going on to the Garaga thing, because I feel like a lot of people do want to talk about Garaga not listening to Boruto. I feel like this is normal. This is a normal situation for a lot of summoning jutsu when they first get summoned by their master. For example, if you guys think about it, when Boruto summoned Gamabunta for the first time, Gamabunta didn't want to do anything. Now, in the case of Boruto, Garaga supposedly is like a prick, like he was the bully of Ryuchi Cave, as Aoda said. Garaga's not going to take too kindly to Boruto summoning him and basically demanding him to do things. For example, you heard in this episode, Garaga wants to be the boss. He basically told Boruto like, hey, if you bow down to me, I'll help you out. And of course, Boruto's not going to do that. Boruto is stubborn himself, much like Naruto was back in the day. So it's going to make for an interesting dynamic. But I do still feel like Garaga is eventually going to become Boruto's summoning jutsu. It just makes sense at this point. Now, here's the thing. Garaga did have a little bit of action in this episode. I feel like it was probably like 10 seconds of solid action where he just wagged his tail. Now, I feel like Sekiei, as he basically told everybody else, that experiments like him, they don't have a long shelf life. They obviously aren't human, and the biggest thing that we can't take away from that is that they're not as perfect as Mitsuki. They're not like Orochimaru's test subjects. I feel like Orochimaru is probably one of the best scientists in the ninja world, and that is a huge thing to say if we do keep in mind that the Kata organization are also making synthetic humans as well. This is going to be a very interesting thing to see how these other experiments fare later on in this arc. For example, there's more experiments. Sekiei being the one that seems the most childish, you have to ask yourself, is Sekiei the youngest? And if Sekiei is the youngest, are these other experiments showing the same amount of wear and tear on their bodies? Now, kokoyou was talking about something very interesting. It was the fact that he didn't necessarily have any jutsu, which is very interesting, seeing that he is a synthetic human being. Like, he was created to be a warrior. Now, some of you guys might still be confused about why I feel like this is extremely weird. And it's like, for example, if you look at a character like Mitsuki, Mitsuki was created by Orochimaru, and Orochimaru put everything, and I mean damn near everything Orochimaru himself knows inside of Mitsuki. In terms of jutsus, and Orochimaru, I'm telling you guys, knows a lot of jutsus, almost as much as Kakashi at this point. And for Kokoyou to have none, I mean none at all. Now there's really only a couple theories I have about this map, and one of them is the fact that, hey, Kokoyou might have been one of the first experiments that Lord Ku pretty much did. Now if this is the case, that pretty much begs the question, like, how old is this Kokoyou character and how long does he have to live? Because of course, as we said, they don't really have that long a life as long as humans themselves. Now speaking of Lord Ku, in the next episode, it looks like we're going to be diving a lot more into Lord Ku and exactly what he wants to do with this whole situation and what his goal is and what he wants to take out of this. Now in the preview, I do want to talk about the preview a tiny bit in this review, not too much, because I do want to say that from our spoilers review. Now Lord Ku, it seems like he's going to be in contact with the tsuchikage. There are a couple of theories about Lord Ku going around that says that, hey, Lord Ku might be the grandson of Onoki. Now if you guys don't know, Onoki basically talked about Boruto, and he basically compared Boruto to being his grandson. No one knows exactly what he meant by he lost his grandson. Now don't worry, Lord Ku fans out there, I will definitely be making a more in-depth video about Lord Ku and exactly what he is, because of course the next episode he's going to be a huge proponent in that, as I said earlier, and I really do want to dive in and give some of my opinions. Of course, if you guys have any theories about Lord Ku, of course I'm going to be picking from the comment and basically seeing what I like and what I probably want to put in my theory review about Lord Ku. But this is going to be a very interesting thing. He is the big boss of this whole arc, and this arc is a very long arc. He's going to be a very important character moving forward in Boruto. It might not be strength lock, but it's going to definitely be in terms of character of Boruto and character of Mitsuki, of them growing and learning. Now, I do want to cover a huge problem about this arc that a lot of people do see, and it's the fact that the Jonin are extremely fodder. Now, of course, we do understand that Boruto or Naruto does this a lot. They do take Jonin to make them a little bit fodder so the plot getting could basically shine. We've seen this in the Chunin exam arc back in Naruto itself, where a lot of the Jonins got taken out extremely easy, and Boruto and Gaara at a certain point seemed like some of the strongest characters. Of course, we had that Orochimaru and Lord Third fight going on simultaneously, but it still seemed like some of the Jonin in that arc was extremely fodder. Not only that, same thing in the war arc. It seemed like, hey, these 16-year-olds are extremely stronger than all the Jonins in the village, and these 16-year-olds were supposedly Chunin. What I want to say is that the argument about the Jonin in this arc being extremely weak, you have a point, but there are some instances previously where Jonins have been shown to be extremely weak as well. So I don't want you guys to think this is just some isolated thing that's happening in Boruto. And of course, as I said earlier, this is my big negative about this arc as well. I really wish they would do a better job of showing how strong Kokoyou is and how strong these Okuda is. I personally feel like this is a product of the writers basically trying to rush through this arc. Now, I definitely understand this arc is extremely long and it's meant to be extremely long, but it does seem a tiny bit rushed. For example, if there was a situation where we'd see multiple Jonin bust out a lot of crazy jutsus, a lot of crazy maneuvers, I don't know, substitution jutsu, fireball jutsu that we did see, like if we seen some characters from the Hyuga clan, if we seen crazy earth style and crazy summoning jutsus from these Jonin, and then Kokoyou still eventually beats them, I would say okay. A lot of the fans out there would say okay as well. We do understand that the Jonin did the best that they could, but it just so happens that this Kokoyou guy is that strong, and I feel like that's the thing that Boruto as a whole is pretty much missing, because they don't really do a great job building up the villains. And I first noticed that when they did introduce Shin Uchiha. Some of you guys probably don't know who Shin Uchiha is. He was a villain earlier in Boruto. Shin Uchiha basically took on Sasuke and Naruto. Now after that arc, the overall consensus about that arc was the fact that Shin Uchiha is like some low-level ninja, and he was giving Naruto and Sasuke a lot of problems, and that people automatically thought that Naruto and Sasuke were nerfed. Now of course, this happened mainly because people thought that Shin Uchiha was not that strong. This wouldn't be the overall consensus if they would have built up Shin Uchiha's character a lot more. As I said, probably have him go out and destroy a lot of people, or probably just showcase his skills somewhere else so we could basically see how strong this guy is. And this is a very important strategy. If you guys don't remember, back when we first seen Hidan and Kakuzu, we didn't necessarily see them fighting our characters at first. We seen them fighting a bunch of villages, like taking out complete villages, and no one knew how. That's why people were mainly scared of Kakuzu and Hidan when we first seen them. At that point, we automatically knew like, hey, the Akatsuki are extremely strong. And just one more example, when we first seen Deidara fought one of the strongest characters in Naruto period in terms of the genin that we did grow up with, which was Gaara. Of course, we automatically knew Gaara was extremely strong. We ended off the canon part of Naruto with Gaara defeating Kimimaro. So obviously if Deidara beat Gaara, which is like the Kage Gaara now, we automatically knew that Deidara was going to be extremely strong, and that set the basis for when Deidara fought Sasuke. The Naruto writers need to understand that they need to set a basis for these villains, or the arc in itself is going to look sloppy, and this is basically what this arc is looking like. And now this isn't really like a break or make feature for this arc. I really still do think this arc is a little bit interesting. I do understand that some of you guys think it's completely boring and you guys just want to get to the Kawaki stuff in Boruto. I completely get it, but I really feel like they should have nailed this part down if this was going to be a very substantial arc going forward in the future of Boruto, especially pertaining Mitsuki and his relationship with the Shinobi world and also Boruto. But that's pretty much all I gotta say for the review of this episode. Let me know what you guys think about this episode in the comment section below, man. It was the episode where Mitsuki quote unquote betrayed Boruto, a very significant episode in this whole arc, possibly even in the whole series. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Mitsuki is actually trying to betray Boruto, or do you guys think what I think, which was that Mitsuki is actually trying to gain trust of kokoyou and also Sekiei going forward into his little arc, or looking for his will, or whatever you want to call it? But it's been your boy Baara B, and we out.